I decided to go back to the Ruby Amethyst aggro deck that I posted a video on a little while ago, and linked in the description is a link to that video as well as the deck list that we're using on screen here. But one of the questions that I was getting in that video was, well, how does this deck fare against Ruby Amethyst Bounce, the tier 0 deck? And normally it would be very good. Unfortunately, I played 3 matches and I didn't run into any of them. But what I did run into was 2 steel variants. The first one you're seeing here is a green steel discard deck, and the second one we run into is a sapphire steel resist deck, I guess. Both decks very good. In this one we end up going first, which is very strong with aggro, and the second one we end up going second. But I wanted to show you that these aggro decks, the way that they're configured, can overcome steel, because even while they are taking out your threats, they are a little slow to get started, and you just get ahead in the lore so quickly that you can usually close out the game as long as your opponent just doesn't have removal every single turn, which they shouldn't, because you eventually will dump your hand, and against Emerald Steel Discard, they just start generating draw off of the Prince John once you have no hand and all your threats are on board. Yes, a Grab Your Swords hurts. Yes, a Tinkerbell hurts. Strength of the Raging Fire hurts, etc. But they're all things you should be able to recover from, especially since you actually play some resilient characters in Minnie Mouse Surfer, Merlin, Rabbit, and Goat, and even the Pongo. Now, Emerald Steel Discard should also be on the Benja, but I don't know if this opponent was, and if they're not, you get a Spellbook up. That's just helping you close the game out even faster. The opponent, you can see here, has to be forced to throw their John into my character in order to ring the Bellet away, the Arthur that is, because I'm getting too far ahead in the lore. And I'm just questing because I know in the first couple of turns they're not trying to quest with their John or their Bucky or slam it into something, because they need it as their discard engine. They're so desperate that on turn 5 they hard cast a Grab Your Sword, so instead of trying to set up for the Sing, because they know that we are just going to keep aggroing them out and the game is going to get too far away from them. So at this point on turn 5 I am expecting a Tinkerbell, but they're likely not going to drop Tinkerbell unless I put like a 1-1 character on board, because they probably don't want to Tinkerbell away my Rabbit. But they might have just done it anyways to trigger the Floodborn, but my guess was they probably had other Floodborns in hand, so I have to start baiting out the removal spells eventually. And here you can see we're able to bait out the Tinkerbell, and we do lose our 2 questing Maleficent, but it's fine because we get to trigger the Rabbit draw as well, and we have a second Rabbit on field. The draw into Shield of Virtue, which is a new addition to the deck, was actually super clutch here. Against Emerald Steel Discard, this card can get you a lot of value because it shuts off their Tinkerbell from challenging your stuff and dealing extra damage. And if they don't play Bench, they can out it as well. Unfortunately, this deck is able to play stuff like this, Bippity Boppity Boo. So they're just going to be able to take out my Pascal and deal another point of damage to the Merlin Rabbit by recasting the Tinkerbell. And it's going to force us to discard. And seeing as that the opponent was going to be on 2 cards, and then I guess 3 for turn, I was going to put them on. I don't think you'll have your 3rd or 4th Be Prepared, or not Be Prepared, sorry, Grab Your Swords, because I think they played 3 yet already, which is kind of wild, right? An aggro deck running into 3 Grab Your Swords, that's crazy. Anyways, we're just going to continue to quest and ready back up the Merlin, and then dump our hand after we play the Pinocchio so that the opponent has nothing to discard. And if they do not have a removal spell, we're going to get very, very close to game. The opponent is going to try to draw off Hypnotize, even though we have no cards in hand. They kind of reveal what they were on. Another Bucky and a Beast Tragic Hero, which doesn't save them in this situation. They're just going to go ahead and start questing with everything because they know that I'm not going to challenge now. But we have 4 lore represented on board. We ready up the Pinocchio. The opponent has one more chance to draw an out, and if not, we win the game. Actually, I'm not even going to give the opponent the chance to challenge my Merlin, I guess, because yeah, if I quested with both, it would leave the Merlin Rabbit exposed, which could get taken out by the Tinkerbell, which defeats the purpose of readying up the Pinocchio. So because they quested there, I'm able to crash the Merlin, and it's great because it shuts off the discard from the John, or the draw from the John off the discard if they do play it, which may help them draw into an out, like another Grab Your Swords or a Strength of the Raging Fire. So questing with that was definitely a mistake by the opponent in the end there, but it probably didn't make a difference, and we ended up winning the game. In this matchup here, we are going second against a Sapphire Steel deck, and right here, I'm actually thinking about, should I quest with, not here, sorry, this next turn on turn 3, because once the opponent gets to 3 ink, they are in smash range or being able to cast the smash. And so if I drop Arthur on turn 3, which is probably the correct play here, I should not quest with Pascal, because otherwise I'd lose it for free against that Eric. But I'm stupid and I'm like, let me just do it anyways. And I actually thought about this when I was playing out this play. And sure enough, I get punished for it. So I rightfully fall way behind because of this play, losing both my Arthur and my Pascal. Now, it did slow the opponent down a little bit, having to waste their turn on the smash, but we all know how explosive Sapphire Steel can be, and losing a little bit of tempo to gain board control, like tempo for that deck, which is just trying to keep ramping and get your high engine out, isn't a big deal. So we're going to go ahead and drop Pongo here, and the opponent is once again valuing the removal, and I'm like, okay, I'm okay with that, considering I have 2 friends from the other side on the field, or in my hand. I'm going to cast one of them, hard cast, and then just go ahead and ink another Pongo in order to just drop a raw Arthur and just pass turn and see if the opponent has another form of removal for it. They do not. They end up dropping a Prince Bodyguard, and that's an interesting tech card. I'm going to end up singing Friend so that I can do this play, and this I don't think is necessarily correct. I probably should have dropped the Arthur there and forced the opponent to say, I'm going to challenge your Mim Snake, or your Mim Fox, sorry, exerted, instead of crashing my Mim Fox into their Eric just to clear their board. I'm trying to do my best to play around a whole new world here, but you can see that we are definitely ahead now. The lore is the same, but we have way more cards in hand. Again, if I was trying to play around the whole new world, I should try to get my value cards out on field. And so, I'm just going to ink what I can. And you can argue if I should play the Snake there and bounce back the Maleficent. I think I probably should have. But my guess was also maybe I should just save it for the Merlin Rabbit in case they do not have a whole new world. Fortunately, they have a Hades, and that outs my Arthur. So we're just going to go ahead and quest with the Maleficent, drop the Goat, and then drop the Snake to bounce back Maleficent to recast it and draw a card. Still trying to think like, yeah, the opponent is probably on a whole new world. But I don't want to end up inking my Teeth and Ambitions here, because if they end up dropping a Beast Tragic Hero, I would like a way to damage it. And sure enough, the opponent did indeed have a whole new world. So after dropping Fishbone Quill, they sing with Hades to draw 7 new cards. They ink off Fishbone, and then they let it go my Goat there. So they are just removing my bounce threats from the field. They're going to drop a Popsicle and pass turn. So they got 4 cards in hand. I quest with both of my characters, and I'm just like, okay, I definitely have to start baiting out the Grab Your Swords and or Tinkerbells here. So I'm not going to full send the Maleficent and all that stuff. I'm going to just play a little passively. LeFou, ready up the Maleficent, establish shield, and there you go. Just ready up all my characters so that the opponent is really incentivized to just drop that. I don't know if I keep calling it Be Prepared, but I mean swords, right? Grab Your Swords on steel. They go up to 10 ink, and they are thinking for a bit here, and sure enough, they do have the Grab Your Swords. They sing it with the Hades, which means they must want to play out a few cards on turn, which makes sense. I think if you had this set up, you probably want to play Hero first and just see what you draw into. They draw yet another Grab Your Swords and clear my whole board. I don't know if that was the 3rd or the 4th one that they drew there, but that's again pretty lucky to wipe my board or getting my board wiped in both games. Lucky for the opponent to get that off. Anyways, you can see our hand is still pretty healthy thanks to that whole new world and our card draw engine naturally. So we're just going to, again, go ahead and hard cast the friends on the other side, set up our board, and pass turn. The Tinkerbell would hurt because it would out the Pinocchio, but that's fine because, yeah, the opponent is questing for 3. They'll be questing for 5 with the Cinderella. We just have to end up hoping to just outpace the opponent and that they don't end up drawing their removal. It turns out they did not have a Tinkerbell, though, or they opt just not to play it because they end up setting up a Sardine Can and a Cogsworth, which is rather interesting. But our draw is pretty good. We are going to end up LeFouing the Pinocchio to ready it back up, play the Spellbook, quest with the Spellbook, and go to 14 and still redrop the Maleficent that we bounce back with the Snake in order to draw a card. We continue to ink because at this point I'm not fearing a Beast Tragic Hero. I overextend with the 1-drop Maleficent, again putting the opponent on a whole new world and not on a Grab Your Swords, but they are likely going to draw into a Tinkerbell because if they play 4, they're bound to see one, and sure enough they do. That ends up outing the Pinocchio and the Maleficent, but it's not enough to stop us unless they can out another character, because we have Snake 1, Mini 3, LeFou, 4, Maleficent 5, and then Spellbook is 6 for game, right? So they realize that and they end up scooping it up. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. If you've made it this far in the video and you enjoyed this gameplay, let me know in the comment section below. And let me know what other decks you might want to see me play in the future. Thank you again for watching, though. Quantum is out.